Previously on my Limbus Company journey, we took down a rampaging chicken man in Hell's Chicken, before meeting Dong Rang at the K-Corp lab, learning more about their healing apples, and about his past with Yi Sang and the other League of Nine. We took down Don Beck, our hardest challenge yet, which ultimately sent us into the memories of Yi Sang, learning about his creation of the mirror. Now it's time to set our sights on the sea, which has gotten all of our sinners really quite excited, especially Don Quixote, who's really excited to try a hand at some. However, before we start our next intervallo, we do have some account stuff to go over. Before I got into Limbus Company, I was told that it's really easy to get new IDs, and you can just buy any ID that you want using in-game shards that you collect through the Battle Pass. Now look, I'll be honest here, I thought everyone was being a bit overly complimentary towards Project Moon. It cannot be that easy to get some of the strongest IDs in the game, it just can't be. So let's just start by opening 100 Fausts. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, I guess it is. We're now actually at level 130 on the Battle Pass, and despite using some boxes to unlock Malfaust, I'm still sat on around 500 spare, though I will talk more detail about how I want to progress the account, the mirror dungeon, and gacha stuff at the end of the video. One last thing for now though, we did pick up the Season 6 Rodia as well, using our Battle Pass guaranteed 3-star ticket. I know that I could have saved this ticket to get a range of different upcoming IDs later down the line, but my account still feels really bare. I needed stuff, and I needed it now. Also, if it turns out a really good ID comes out later in the season, I'll just buy them. For those of you who are thinking I've just made the Cantos completely trivial now, don't worry. Wild Hunt Heathcliff is currently bugged, so even if I defend at 15 SP and I'm on Dullahan, I will not use Lament. Currently the only way to trigger Lament is by using skill 3 while mounted on the back of Dullahan. And while yes, Malfaust is a very strong ID, she does require some capable hands, and mine are not. Heishu Rodia, however, is possibly my new favourite ID, and I absolutely love her more simple kit combined with her incredible skill 3. During the road trip to the seaside, expectations reach a sky high, but Vergilius is surprisingly quiet, and the bus is making no attempts to stop, not until we reach a green wasteland of rubbish and giant crabs. Ishmael though does not share the same excitement. Clearly this is her Canto, and she is stressed. Not a little bit, she is stressing more than anything we've seen up until this point. Any attempts to calm her down ends up in an argument, though in Heathcliff's case, his attempts are nothing more than petty squabbles, which very nearly caused him to get his head caved in by a mace. To lighten the mood, the sinners decide to play some beach volleyball after all, though unfortunately it doesn't have the desired effect, and the rivalry between Heathcliff and Ishmael continued, until eventually Heathcliff destroyed the ball, wasting hours of poor Don Quixote's time, as she was the one to procure the ball. Now I'll be honest with you, neither of these two sinners are my favourites, and this petty squabbling is getting on my nerves. I was getting sick and tired of Ishmael's attitude the entire time, moaning how we're not ready and we're all going to die a horrible permanent death, without elaborating on anything. But it's funny writing these scripts with hindsight, because after finishing Canto 5, that's not how I feel at all anymore, and actually I fully understand why she was so stressed. We've all had moments in our life where we've been stressed, but however bad I've been at my worst, won't have even been a fraction of what she was feeling at the time, so I do feel bad for making a note of how much she was getting on my nerves. We're approached by two young mechanics who are here to help transform Mephisto from a bus to a boat bus, or a bus boat. Sadly though, they have no scrap metal at all for the project, and we're tasked with murdering the local populace of trash crabs to procure the metal needed. Days go by before we start seeing any progress, but thankfully a much needed gigantic king crab later, and we get a sudden injection of hard earned scrap. We pay our bill and we set sail onto the Great Lake. Well, after some much needed adjustments to stop us from sinking. Just when the mechanics thought they actually might be able to afford some proper food and stop eating remains of trash crabs. As we sail towards our rendezvous, we're informed that we need to sail faster, as we've only got a few minutes before we break the law of the current lake that we reside in. What does that mean exactly? I don't know, as any attempt to make a physical copy of these rules is breaking the rules. But we have some expert sailors and Faust, who seems to know an awful lot about the rules, and the calamities that attack you if you break them. So how many lakes are there? Absolutely loads, and they're colour coded to help you understand the scale of the task ahead. After almost killing half of our sinners from exhaustion, we reached our destination. But our informant is missing, and instead a pirate is attempting to extort us for information on the informant. So now we're a couple of layers deep on the old informant ladder. Thankfully, Ishmael's approach to this problem is exactly how I've wanted everybody to resolve their issues in the past. Mace to the face. Again, so funny writing a script with hindsight, because the knock-on effect of this is something that drove me up the wall for 2 real-life days. But we'll get into that. Through a bloodied conflict, we learn about the location of the next ladder rut, a woman by the name of Shmi, who's the owner of a pretty exclusive club. As we try to gauge the sinner's level of club experience, we learn that one of our sinners was actually a regular clubgoer. Hong Lu, of course. Oh, Mersalt. Mersalt? I did not see that coming. Though by the time we had figured all this out, Ishmael was off doing Ishmael things, and before we know it, we're busy giving Shmi the good old 1-2. I am fully rooting for Ishmael to finish the job here. I do not like the idea of leaving loose ends behind. But Shmi informs us that that is a bad idea, as she's protected by a big brother of the middle, whatever that means. Our sinners, however, all seem to know exactly what that means. But despite all that, Ishmael hurls an attack at Shmi, only for Dante to step in and take the hit in her place. Something if I had more control over, wouldn't have happened. We can take anyone or anything that comes at us. Anything. Send it all the big brothers, I don't care. We're told our informant is in a shipping crate with a green triangle on it, and so off we go to rescue him and get the information that we need on the golden bow. Turns out he works for someone we know quite well. Sword! She's alive! We're also told about what happened to his squad. Apparently, after finding the golden bow, a big brother showed up and caused problems, and the very sight of him scared the veterans of our before team. So clearly big brothers are terrifying and we don't want to do anything to cross them. Except we probably already have. What was really unexpected was the sight of a giant pallid whale calamity that scared even the big brother. But with that information, we have some rough coordinates to find our golden bow, so it's back onto the Grey Lake for us. Here's a fun fact for you all. I've actually got a really bad phobia for the sea in real life, so I was not looking forward to this canto at all. I don't like the thought of something underneath you not being solid. If something goes wrong on land, there's a good chance you're okay. If it goes wrong at sea, less good chance for being okay. Especially if all the monstrosities that live under the water get to you first. And that's something that's only exaggerated more in fantasy worlds, such as the whales and the mermaids we're about to encounter. Though it's not all doom and gloom, as eventually we stumble across a party cruise ship that we're actually given permission to board from the big man himself. As we board, we realise that it's oddly quiet, besides the loud blaring music. Ah, much better. Thanks, Heathcliff. Hong Lu decides that now is the time to tell a ghost story, which scares Sinclair so much that he runs off to the storerooms in search of passengers. Turns out though, the ghost story is actually just about people dancing. Hong Lu is actually a character that's really starting to grow on me, as well as Don Quixote. They both just seem to be completely unbothered by everything, and they always come back with a fun, chirpy response. Though I'm sure one day that'll probably change. Both these characters seem to be really fun, that even little jabs that the sinners take on each other has no effect on them. Virgil is talking to, however, did seem to affect Dawn a bit. Though if anything, she seems to know when she's gone too far, and Virtuous also knows when she realises this. Sinclair, however, I swear has had zero character development at all. Since his canto, where he faced his fears and even mustered up the courage to dismember countless N-Corp with his halberd, he largely seems like the same character. Whereas Yi Sang has started contributing more and more to conversations, even getting in between sinners fighting and restoring balance. Gregor and Rhodia I'm unsure on, as looking back at the cantos it sort of felt like Project Moon was still trying to find their footing. Sinclair has been gone a while, so we go to check up on him. For whatever reason he's standing completely still in a pitch black room, with corpses dangling from the ceiling. Wait, that's not normal, is it? We manage to snap some sense back into Sinclair, and we make a break for it, boarding Mephisto once again with the rest of the sinners, only to look back at a cruise ship and see countless of corpses now dangling from a hideous sea monster. Days of sailing around the Great Lakes later, and we finally found our target, though it's now covered in some white membrane. While I really don't want to step foot onto this is where the golden bow last was, and we've got no choice. The remains of the before team are plastered to the walls, except they're seemingly alive, but there's nothing we can do. The sounds of one attempting to talk to us is heard in the distance, and as they close the gap between us, part of the white outer shell fades away. It appears the golden bow fragment inside Dante's head counteracts whatever the white stuff is. We fight our way through whoever comes at us, and they're quite tough as apparently they retain all their combat prowess from before they transformed. Amongst the chaos, a blue butterfly is seen dancing on a puddle, and as we approach they transform into a strange fishbowl with an hourglass residing inside. They say their name is Rim, though it appears Yi Sang knows them from the League of Nine. Many of our sinners were quick to note that their appearance isn't too different from Damien's, who we saw obliterate Chroma. Clearly there is some level of being, way above anything that we've seen yet. Rim informs us that this entire building was swallowed by the pallid whale before it was spat back out. Everything except the gold bow, that is. Meaning, we need to find the pallid whale and venture inside of it. The white stuff is essentially whale mucus, vomit, a mixture. Don't fully know, don't think I want to know. Rim also says it doesn't matter who gets the golden bows or what they are used for, but that they must be collected before he vanishes without a trace. Time to get off this whale-infested vessel before something else happens. I knew it, we should have killed Shmi. Ricardo, the big brother we've heard mentioned a few times, approaches the sinner and began explaining how he's going to kill all of them in horrible, brutal ways. We do our best job to explain that Shmi is alive, we didn't mean to overstep, but Ricardo looks confused and he has no idea who Shmi is, before presenting us with a photograph showing Heathcliff stealing from a ship. What did he steal? Hair coupons. Okay, fine, I said earlier you can send whoever or whatever you want to me and I'll take them all on. But I was so unprepared for the beatdown. Believe me, after the first defeat I actually spent a long time reading his entire kit and I knew that I had to stagger him before he did his hair coupons. But I couldn't win the clashes and I couldn't understand why. I was doing the maths and even if he hits all heads the clash should not be in favour of him. And yet, we were struggling or hopeless against him. I think I wasn't taking into account all the buffs that he gets, or the fact that we don't know what level he is, but he's clearly above our level, and the fact that level actually affects clashes as well. These are all things I'd never thought about before, but it's definitely good looking back on it to understand why I lost these fights. Despite having such a strong team of IDs right now, I wasn't scratching Ricardo. Not even a little bit. I made two realizations here. One is my skill's sins did not feed the egos that my sinners were using. And two, although yes, my team is really powerful, they are all entirely weak to blunt. I did eventually win the fight. I completely demolished him, but I'm almost ashamed to show you how I did it. Basically, I looked through my support IDs for an Ishmael to see if anyone was good at dealing blunt damage, but also resistant to it as well. And I came across Zwei Ishmael, who seemed to be great at buffing herself up to take even less damage. So I borrowed one, and I removed everybody else. She literally soloed the entire fight like it was nothing, and considering she's supposed to be some sort of tank support character, I thought it would be slow, but nope, she absolutely destroyed it. She's now moved right to the sort of top of my list of IDs that I'm thinking of picking up. Ricardo though wasn't done with us. He was enjoying killing us on repeat and eventually clocked that Dante was reviving him again and again. When he finally got bored of mutilating the sinners, he made a beeline for Dante, but not before a harpoon out of absolutely nowhere pierced his shoulder. Whoever threw this must have been an absolute monster, because this harpoon is massive. The harpoon travelled so fast that we didn't even see it. Suddenly though, an old man is seen rowing a small dinghy towards us, before telling Ricardo to walk away. Although hesitant to do so, he does eventually leave us be. Dante, the sinners and the old man all return to Mephisto, where Virgilius gives a welcoming to. I can't say if it's a warm welcoming or a cold one, but he certainly welcomed the old man. Virgilius greets him as Indigo, another being on the same level as Red, and both awarded colours for being high level fixers. Indigo apparently is here to hunt the calamities of the Great Lakes, and so far he has actually killed one. Seeing how we're after the pallid whale, he wants to help us take it down, but not before asking Red if he had joined the hunt. Unsurprisingly, no. But it doesn't faze the Indigo Hunter, as he said if Red joined he wouldn't join because it wouldn't have been his kill, suggesting that Red is possibly stronger than he is. Our sinners clearly have a long way to go before they are truly strong. With the plan in motion, we set sail, following the words of an old sea shanty in order to summon the pallid whale. And while the relationship between Heath and Ishmael is still sour, he admits that she's not the kind of lass to lie about something just to win a petty squabble. And this seems to be the first step in mending their friendship. Soon enough, a storm begins and we see a frame of several calamity-sized whales under the water. But only one matters, the pallid whale. Despite its eye drowning our vessel in size, the beast emerges out of thin air. And suddenly Ishmael is full of vigour, leading our crew of sinners to either victory or their doom. The Indigo Hunter fires off a harpoon into the whale, causing a loud roaring response. But this is it, this is our moment. With a morale-inspiring bellow from Ishmael, we set sail hard into the jaws of the pallid whale, before crashing in what we can only assume is its stomach. Heathcliff, of all people, points out that living organisms typically use acid to melt and digest their food, so we should probably get moving. And right on cue, the acid begins to fill the stomach. But two partially white sailors throw down some rope, rescuing us and taking us to the Pequod village. Isn't that the name of Ishmael's old ship? Ahab approaches us, Ishmael's old captain. We've seen flashbacks of Ishmael's memories, as well as visions of her imagination, as she rips out Ahab's heart. And without a second thought, Ishmael lunges at the old captain. While she's unsuccessful, Captain Ahab laughs it off, and forgives her, and suggests we have a chat in her office. While she seems totally insane, she's far more clever than we gave her credit. She's well aware we're here for the golden bow, and even tells us where it is and how to get there. But in return, she wants to be the one to pierce the heart of the whale and claim the kill. A long discussion with our sinners later, and sadly, we have no choice but to agree and set off on our journey. The Pequod village takes one route, and the sinners another, but we are actually lent the assistance of Queequeg, who turns out to be a bit of a beast herself, as she was once a part of the middle. We finally reached the crossing point, but before we can make our way over the artery, Queequeg stops us and says it will collapse. The whole point of her being with us was to essentially make us fall to our demise. But recanting their tales of their journey together, Queequeg decides to side with Ishmael against Captain Ahab. A quick detour later and we find ourselves fighting a giant blue space whale inside of the whale. I can't remember if the game explained why this is here or not, but I did do some more research afterwards, and apparently that building that the whale swallowed was filled with old abnormalities, as it used to be owned by one of the corporations. Also, you already know what I'm going to say here, but hey, I fought this in the mirror dungeon, meaning I know that actually yes, you can mess this fight up pretty bad. There is one really big move that has a high attack weight. We need to make sure that we win that clash, but for some reason we're paralysed, even though there is no mention of paralyze in his kit. Though thankfully, Sinclair's skill 3 is such a high base value that even with paralysis he just doesn't lose, and we cut the whale down to side. We reach our heart and we begin the final charade with Captain Ahab, though now with a much smaller crew, as she decides to sacrifice all of them on the way here. It's not clear why she did this, but honestly I think it's just because she's gone mad. Despite everything, Queequeg and Starbuck, Ahab's second in command, steal side of Ahab, and we need to fight the trio. But this fight went incredibly well, it just took a while. This defeat finally pushes Ahab over the edge, and she transforms, using the other sailors as enhancements to her arm's weapon.
악의 뿌리를 끊어낼 것이니.
창백한 고래, 그리고 마음의 틈과 틈 사이를 파고든다. 사람이라면 응당 있을 수밖에 없는 흔들리고 떨리는 미세한 틈, 혼란과 외로움, 불확실에 대한 불안, 겪을 수밖에 없는 상실. 이 연약하고도 무수한 틈 사이를 촘촘하게 메꿔버린다. 어느 순간부터 나의 틈은 단 하나의 집념으로 숨이 막힐 정도로 가득 채워져 있었다. 이 상황을 만들어온 모든 일의 원인은 에이헤브를 죽이겠노라. 그 생각들로 너무나도 겹겹이 채워놓아서 모두와의 시간과 그때그때 내 선택들도 알아볼 수 없을 정도로 메워두어서 언젠가부터 나는 원래의 내 모습이 무엇이었는지조차 잊어버리기 시작한 채 어디로 가야 할지도 알 수 없게 되었어.
뭐하냐? 나와.
히스 클리프 저 언제부터 뒤덮여가고 있었던 거죠? 미안해, 퀵객을 구해주지 못해서.
내가 너무 늦은 거야. 뭐가 옳은지 그른지를 스스로 생각하는
내 앞을 가로막는군요. 왜 그러는 거예요? 왜 계속 저를 막아요? 왜 계속 시계를 돌려주는 거예요? 그래서 당신이 몰았는다고?
마지막 남은 선원들까지 다 죽였나? 난
그래, 이제 당신뿐이고.
그래. 이제 너는 나와 같아졌군, 이스마일. 우리 둘 다 누군가를 죽여가면서라도 그 끝에 있는 것을 손에 쥐기만 한다면 그래도 마땅하다 생각하지. 그것만 죽인다면 더 이상 바랄 것이 없을 거라고.
내가 모는 배가 좀 흔들릴 테니 다들 꽉 잡아!
And that's the end of Canto 5, with Heathcliff pulling Ishmael out of the white palidification, doing a fantastic 180 on the relationship at the start of the canto. Although Dante stopped Ishmael from killing Ahab, part of me feels like that was a mistake. Sure, I understand the emotional side and not succumbing to one's deepest desires, but I still feel like it's a mistake, and that we're leaving more loose ends untied. And that's exactly why. But also, that's a few times now we've seen people related to our sinners being picked up by this woman, almost as if she's building her own team to face off against our sinners in the very end. Before we end this video, I did say I wanted to talk a bit more about the account and Gacha related stuff. The Ricardo fight made me realise quite a lot about Limbus Company, and while I was going to treat myself to Hey Shu Gregor once I beat Canto 5, so that I can build up a Rupture team, I began to realise that building a one team fits all isn't going to work. If I had Gregor, would it have made the Ricardo fight any easier? No. Will it possibly speed up mirror dungeon runs? Yes. I think my account is missing more than anything is generalist IDs, and I was so impressed with Zwei Ishmael, she's now at the top of my list of IDs to pick up. Having a tanky ID with aggro mechanics sounds great, especially coupled with the assisted defense from Malfaust, as it'll mean any weaker clashes can be avoided much easier. However, before I start opening all my boxes, I am going to wait for Walpurgis. I should have 200 plus summons ready to go, and once I'm done summoning, I get to make the decision on who I'm going to pick up. Red Eyes Ryoshu seems like a fantastic generous ID, but also there's W Corp Ryoshu. But the other thing is I'm a collector by nature, so whenever there is a limited time to grab stuff, I want to try to grab as many of them as I possibly can. So my priority right now does actually lie with Season 6 IDs and Walpurgis IDs. In terms of gameplay though, I actually want to push hard and rush now to finish Canto 6 in a much shorter time than I did between 4 and 5. The reason for this is to unlock the hard mirror dungeon, as I need to farm up the rest of the achievements and I can't do that in normal mode. And we've only got limited time before this version mirror dungeon is gone. I've done most of what I can with my limited number of IDs and without access to hard mode. Initially I wanted to get to Canto 6 before reset, but I realised actually it can be done any time before next week's reset, giving me actually a whole extra week to get this done. But this is where I pass off the question on to you. Which IDs do you think I should be focusing on right now, and why? If you could also tell me what season they're from so I can look them up in a dispenser, and of course please avoid naming any season 5 IDs as I can't get them. But feel free to mention Walpurgis IDs and I'll see what I can do. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye bye.